How to Structure Your Business. Hello, I'm Carla Langhorse, and I'm here to talk about structuring your business. So you've taken the first huge step and decided to start a business. Now what? Should you register the business at all? Is there an opportunity to be a subcontract worker? Is there a chance that you could be simply part-time? If not, then there's a whole list of business types out there to choose from, and each has positives and negatives when it comes to the government, taxes, partners, closing and opening, and probably a few things you weren't expecting. But remember, you have options. When it comes to structuring a business, you have options, so take advantage of them. While it may seem confusing at first, choosing the correct business model will ensure that you get exactly what you want from the business. This model outlines the major differences between business structures and explains the major structures out there. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide what differences are important to you and to choose the right structure for you and your business. The goal? To select a business model to start your business. The key points that we'll be covering: subcontractor or contract, sole proprietorship, general partnership, limited liability partnership, corporation, nonprofit, and then we'll run through an example of how to choose, what not to do, your next steps, and of course, a wrap-up. Grab your worksheet and follow along. Business structure is how you formally register the business with the government and how you formally outline how your business works on paper. It also has to do with the people in the business work, control, or invest themselves, both money and time, into it. Your choice of business structure can affect how much you pay in taxes, how much your employees or partners work and what they do, how much liability you have or risk, how people perceive you, how much paperwork you have to do, and what type of incentive programs you are eligible for. This model is for anyone who hasn't made a business structure decision yet, and for anyone who hasn't yet registered their business with the government. Did you consider the idea that you don't have to start a business at all? There is the opportunity, especially if you only have one or two customers, to just do contract work. There is the downside that as a contract worker, you don't have the benefits or vacation time paid for, but technically, you wouldn't have this with your own company either. The bonus? A higher hourly wage. And it's the beginning of you taking control of your time while minimizing the risk of starting a business immediately. You could start work with one or two companies and then grow in a very controlled, low-risk manner. The tax benefits are slightly lower than with your own company as fewer breaks are applicable, but you aren't reliant on others to complete the work, and you don't need as much investment. There's less paperwork and not too much liability. There is a perception that contract work is not true entrepreneurship, but that shouldn't be a hindrance to someone whose dream it is to have a company up and running. Sole proprietorship. A sole proprietor is an individual who starts a company which is an extension of himself or herself. From the government's perspective, the company is not a separate entity, but is part of the owner. For example, if the owner has a job where she makes $20,000 a year and has a business through which she makes $10,000, her total income is $30,000 that year. It's her. There's a mix of pros and cons to this business structure. Although more things can be written off as a sole proprietorship than a contractor, the overall tax rate is higher, as it is still personal taxation. There's only one owner in the company, so there is little reliance on external parties. However, as the business is tied to the owner, he or she is liable for any business lawsuit or concern that arises. The perception of being an entrepreneur is good with the general public, but other companies sometimes don't like dealing with sole proprietors and would prefer to deal with a corporation. There's some paperwork required for sole proprietorship, as it needs to be registered and have a formal company name. Plus, taxes need to be filed and paid with the government. People often choose this structure as a first step to having a business full-time. Tying the business with your other sources of income when you aren't making money allows you to write off expenses and reduce your taxes on those other sources of income. It only makes sense to pay the additional fees to incorporate if it will get you more business or if you're making more money. General partnership. A general partnership is when two partners or more have ownership in the business and both help with the day-to-day operations of the business. The partnership can be divided in any way, and you can have more than just two partners, of course. The tax benefits and liability are the same as for sole proprietorship, as the business still isn't incorporated. However, there is a perception that the business is more established, and there's the knowledge that the multiple people are working in the business. It also requires less investment on your part as there are multiple people in the business to draw from. But you do have to rely on others, and decisions cannot be made as quickly because there's more than one person making them. Plus, there's a little more red tape with dividing up profits, having a partnership agreement, and potentially having to change your business dramatically when a partner joins or leaves. It makes sense to have a partnership as there are so many different skill sets required to become a successful entrepreneur or small business. Many of these skill sets are complementary, such as the ability to stay focused versus multitasking, and being detail-oriented versus being highly creative. Having a partner that complements your own skill set can add significant value. Just make sure that you select someone you're extremely compatible with in terms of working style, values, and vision for the partnership. Only when these are aligned should you be proceeding. Limited liability partnership. A limited liability partnership is similar to the description before, except for one or more of the partners is merely an investing partner and does not work in the day-to-day business. Although there is less manpower in the business than in a general partnership, there's a huge opportunity to reap business advice and knowledge from the limited partners. Plus, having this option available within your business encourages and allows for additional financing more readily. Each limited liability partnership must have at least one general partner who does work in the day-to-day business. This individual experiences the same pros and cons as a general partnership. The limited partner is removed from the business, meaning fewer tax write-offs, and they do not have the liability for the business's actions. For example, if the business was sued, the limited partner's own property and bank account would not be at risk, whereas the general partners would be. Few entrepreneurs consider this option when creating their business, but it has different pros and cons which may fit your personal needs better than other structures and should be considered. Corporation. Everyone seems to want to incorporate, but don't rush into it. It is a decision to be made like everything else in your business, for the right reasons. Why would you not immediately incorporate? Your business may have little personal risk. You may not be making money in the business and can use its losses to reduce taxes on other investments or other businesses. You don't have the money to incorporate and could use that money elsewhere in your startup. So what are the pros of incorporating? A lower tax rate and certain other tax benefits. You can get investors more easily, and people perceive corporations in a more positive light as being established. Finally, there's limited liability for all owners of the business who are now issued stocks. However, liability can be covered by insurance unless it is something absolutely horrific. The cons are that there are specific regulations and tax filing, which is much more intensive. Nonprofit doesn't mean you don't make any money. This is a common misconception. Nonprofits pay their employees and can pay them well, and any profits can be reinvested into the business. But the misconception that nonprofits don't profit can help in your negotiations with other organizations. Nonprofits can also be eligible for government grants, which helps on the investment side, and they have a few additional tax benefits. However, there is more red tape involved. Don't overlook this option. So how does this actually work? How do we make this decision? Cynthia wants to start her own fashion design shop, but she doesn't have any capital to get started. She has been considering incorporating and uses this model to figure out if incorporating makes sense. So let's look at it. So for the different business structures, she's highlighted the contract or subcontract, sole proprietorship, general partnership, limited liability partnership, corporation, and nonprofit. Then we look at the impacts. So there's a tax benefit. Do we need others? Do we need investments? What about liability and risk? What about perception and red tape or paperwork? Are they low, medium, or high across the board? And let's see what makes sense for us. So going through this, as a contractor, tax benefit, lower. Need others, low. Investments, low chance of it. Liability, medium. Perception is lower. Red tape is lower. Sole proprietorship. Well, tax benefit's a little bit better. Harder to have others involved. Investment, well, we can have that. Liability is higher. Perception, medium. Red tape, medium. General partnership. Well, the tax benefit is in the medium side, just like limited liability partnership is. Need others? Well, yes, we can get that investment in here, and it's easy to have partners then. Investments, medium for both general and limited. Liability, it's high for the general partnership. It's low for the limited. Perception, medium, medium. And red tape, medium, and higher if it was limited. Jumping into incorporation, what Cynthia is looking at, well, the tax benefit is definitely high. If we have to have others, well, we can get them in. Investment, we can get them in. Liability, well, it's lower. Perception, higher, and red tape is higher. Nonprofit, high tax benefits. If we need to have others, it's about medium. Investments, lower side. Liability, same, medium. Perception can be high because the social impact of nonprofits can be a high perception. Red tape, high. So if we look at all of these pros and cons across the board, she considers the incorporation fees and the fact that she doesn't think she'll be making a profit for the first 2 years, and realizes that incorporating might actually not be the right way to start her business. She has started to think that she could do some contract work at an existing shop to minimize her risk, or maybe even turn the shop into a nonprofit fashion design incubator for other fashion designers. So by knowing her options, Cynthia can make a more educated decision. Now, the mistakes to avoid. Not thinking about all of the different ways to structure your business. Do not pigeonhole yourself. Not having an open mind to the different options. So being so focused on what you thought you wanted to have, or maybe jumping forward in a specific structure without really thinking it all the way through. Quitting your job without considering work as a contractor. It's a good transition model. Incorporating your business from the very beginning without thinking about what makes sense. And thinking that these are the only options. Things can be customized for what you are looking for based on how you write up legal agreements and partnerships and corporations. So even the ones that are presented here, there are more options out there. So if none of these work for you, consider other ones as well and continue to do your research. Now what? Well, the first step, decide which structure will work for you. Then, do the appropriate work to get it set up in the next month. Make sure that you have all of the additional paperwork, your registered business name, and HST number within 60 days. Double check that the structure you have is continuing to work for you. Should you look at incorporating, getting a partner, selling the idea to your old employer, and seeing if you can get a contract position? Review your legal structure once a year to see if it still makes sense based on taxes, needing help from others, investment, liability, perception, and the red tape. The key points that we covered: could you be a contractor, a sole proprietorship, a general partnership, limited liability, corporation, nonprofit, and then we talked through how to actually make this decision yourself. We highlighted what not to do and your next steps. The goal is to help you select a business model to start your business. In addition to the options listed, there are charities, co-ops, and affiliations. These are all options with different levels of involvement from others, risk, and red tape. Although those mentioned above are the main structures, if nothing seems to fit what you're looking for, write down what structure you're hoping to have and speak with a professional. How to structure your business. If you learn anything, it should be this: have a reason for selecting a business structure.